I knew the second Brenda Whitaker scheduled that quick board sync for 3:30 on a Friday that it wasn't about approving the new flowerbed budget. You don't get a calendar invite like that after 24 years in Willow Creek Estates, unless someone's about to pat you on the head and shove you straight into the community dumpster. I still showed up in my crisp white blouse, the one the old-timers called my meeting armor, and the sensible navy cardigan that had survived every potluck and every petty complaint since the neighborhood broke ground. The boardroom in the clubhouse smelled like burnt coffee and desperation. Brenda was already perched at the head of the table like a vulture who'd spotted roadkill, her pastel pink pantsuit screaming, "I'm approachable, but don't test me." Next to her sat little Lisa from Records, blinking behind her glasses like she'd rather be anywhere else. And Todd, the new golden retriever treasurer who'd only moved in last year and already acted like he invented property values. They didn't even bother with the usual fake plaque or thank you for your service cookies. Just a cheap printed agenda that said my role as community compliance representative was being sunset for strategic realignment. Brenda offered a smile that might as well have been a middle finger dipped in artificial sweetener. "Best of luck out there, Emily," she cooed, like she hadn't just lit a match under 2 decades of actual neighbor trust. Lisa slid the folder across the table without meeting my eyes. "It's not personal," she whispered. "Just the numbers." Todd smirked like he'd already picked out my parking spot for his golf cart. And I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just nodded once, the way someone does when they already know the punchline, because I did. I knew something Brenda and her shiny new clique didn't. See, Willow Creek didn't run on quarterly newsletters and those ridiculous fines for mailbox flags. It ran on handshakes forged at block parties and trust built over decades of me actually listening when Mrs. Halverson's roses got trampled, or when the Carlsons needed a quiet word about their teenagers' midnight fireworks. I was the name on those original CC and RS, the covenants, conditions, and restrictions I co-wrote back in 2012 with old Mr. Thorne before he retired to Florida. I buried the real teeth in the fine print they never bothered to read at onboarding meetings. Continuity Clause 7C. Crystal clear. Any change to the designated community compliance representative must be authorized in writing by the original signatory, or every single enforcement action, fines, warnings, even the HOA's legal standing to tell you your grass is half an inch too long, nulls out faster than Brenda could say community standards. But they didn't know that. Not yet. So I packed exactly 2 things from my little desk in the clubhouse office. One framed photo of me and the original neighbors at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, all of us laughing under a banner that actually said, "Welcome home," and the worn black leather folder with the red tab I'd kept hidden under old Christmas party sign-up sheets. Inside was the 2012 draft of Clause 7C, the one that would gut the HOA's entire authority faster than any recession if they screwed it up. Which, spoiler alert, they just did. I walked out past the front desk where Denise from admin gave me that wide-eyed, early day look. "Yeah," I said, not breaking stride, finally lightening the load. It's funny. You give a neighborhood half your life. You miss birthdays, delay vacations, drive across town at midnight because someone's basement flooded and the insurance adjuster was being a jerk. You show up to funerals with casseroles and sit through endless meetings about paint colors no one actually cares about. And all it takes is one power-hungry newcomer in a pastel pantsuit with a LinkedIn bio full of synergy and streamlining to decide your legacy is overhead. Well, turns out I wasn't the overhead. I was the foundation. And when you yank the foundation, the whole pretty little McMansion starts to crack. By Monday morning, my phone had 6 voicemails. Not from Brenda, not from Todd, from actual neighbors. The kind who'd lived here since the first cul-de-sac was paved. They didn't sound mad. They sounded confused. "Emily, where'd you go? Brenda's office said you're no longer involved. Do I still bring my fence height variance to you?" The last one just said, "Whatever you're doing next, Count me in. If you've made it this far, do me a solid. Hit that like button and subscribe. 97% of people don't. And yeah, it matters more than you think. Helps me keep bringing these real HOA nightmares to you. Anyway, I didn't answer those voicemails right away. I didn't need to. I knew what was coming. Somewhere in that over-decorated clubhouse, Brenda was probably ordering custom nameplates that said President Brenda Whitaker, visionary leader, and practicing her concerned face for the next newsletter. Todd was probably sipping his oat milk latte, proud of modernizing the homeowner experience. None of them had touched the black folder yet. None of them had any idea they just triggered the most expensive mistake in Willow Creek history. But they would. Oh, they would. It felt rehearsed. Not even badly, just soulless, like a PowerPoint someone recycled from another neighborhood purge. I walked into that Friday meeting and instantly knew I was the punchline. Brenda didn't even try to look solemn. She lounged in the president's chair like she'd already redecorated my office in her head. Lisa sat primly beside her with that laminated empathy smile they teach in HOA boot camp. Thanks so much for coming in, Brenda chirped, like she hadn't just pulled me off a call with the Jensens about their illegal basketball hoop. We just wanted to touch base before the weekend. Todd jumped in. You've been here, 24 years? Incredible. Seriously, that kind of tenure is rare these days. Lisa slid the folder across. Unfortunately, as part of our strategic realignment, your role has been impacted by necessary downsizing. This isn't about performance. It's just the numbers. Brenda smirked like she was trying to look appropriately regretful, but couldn't help herself. You've built a lot here, Emily, but it's a new era. Best of luck out there. They both looked at me, waiting for tears or yelling or begging. I just blinked. Lisa's voice got chirpier, like she was already reading from the exit script. You'll be fine. People like you always land somewhere. People like me. That part stuck. People like me remembered when Willow Creek didn't have security cameras on every corner or apps to report your neighbor's holiday lights. People like me knew every clause in the original CC and RS because we wrote them with the founding families back when they still read what they signed. People like me stayed late when the community pool pump died and took complaint calls on Christmas Eve and showed up unprompted to help when Mr. Carlson's wife passed because trust doesn't live in a Google sheet. I didn't say any of that. I just nodded once. For myself. To mark the moment. I stood slowly, didn't ask about severance or references. I already knew what was in the papers. They'd prepared it like they were burying a goldfish. Not the woman who'd kept the peace for 2 decades. I took exactly those 2 things and walked out through the same glass doors I'd held open for new movers and crying kids and every single board member who ever needed a quiet word. No applause. No card. Just silence. Denise gave me a confused little wave. Everything okay? Yeah, I said, just finally lightening the load. In the parking lot, I sat in my car for a full minute, gripping the steering like it owed me an explanation. I wasn't angry yet. That part would come. Brenda strutted into the clubhouse Monday like she was launching a lifestyle brand, not inheriting 24 years of actual neighbor work. She high-fived the new volunteers and pretended she had a plan while sipping her oat milk, whatever from a reusable cup that probably cost more than the dues they'd quietly raised last year. At 9:20 a.m., the front phone lit up. Denise answered with her usual chirp. Then her eyebrows shot up. She transferred it to Brenda's admin. 10 minutes later, another call. Then another. By noon, I'd been asked about by 6 different families. 3 were original homeowners. 1 was the Jensens with their hoop variants still pending. 2 were the quiet retirees whose names never showed up on group chats because I handled them directly for years. Brenda didn't catch it at first. She was too busy acting important. But by 1:30, her admin had a sticky note with my name underlined 3 times in a tight expression. One phrase kept showing up. We'll wait until Emily's placed again. One homeowner even CC'd the entire board and old mister. Thorne in Florida. No need to rush anything until we hear from her directly. Her. Me. The ghost in the bylaws. And I still hadn't made a single call. I wasn't playing coy. I just knew how this worked. These weren't homeowners. These were people. Real people with grandkids on tricycles and side businesses and too much equity in their houses to trust a spreadsheet Karen who thought community standards meant matching lawn gnomes. I'd been at their weddings. I'd held their hands after spouses died. I'd driven across town at 2 a.m. when a market crash had them panicking about their mortgages because they didn't want to Zoom from the bedroom they built together. They weren't loyal to the HOA, they were loyal to the woman who actually listened. Every time a new message popped in my inbox or my voicemail, yes, they still had my personal number. I wrote it down in a small red notebook. The same kind I used back when we tracked complaints by hand and stapled notices in colored folders. Every entry was a data point, a reminder, a spark. It wasn't just about revenge. Not yet. It was about watching something unfold that I knew was inevitable. You remove the compliance rep of record on the original covenants and think there won't be fallout. You treat relationships like line items and expect no one to notice. Please, by 3 p.m., I got a text from a former volunteer who still owed me for helping her clean up that illegal shed in 21. Brenda's pacing like a raccoon in a trash fire. What did you do? I didn't reply. I just sipped my coffee, crossed another name off the page, and underlined the word patience. You don't need to torch the place when the structure is already hollow. You just pull the keystone, and I had been that keystone for 24 years. They just finally gave me a reason to see how fast it all fell. Tuesday, Brenda had a nervous twitch in her left as she was trying to mask with extra concealer and charisma. Her new compliance team had already sent out cheerful emails with subject lines like, excited to partner with you. And one by one, they were getting silence or worse, polite but chilling replies that all boiled down to we'll wait. Still, Brenda brushed it off in the emergency board meeting. They'll cool off, she said, adjusting her pearl necklace like she was auditioning for Real Housewives of the suburbs. Old homeowners just need a little hand-holding. We got fresh energy now. Get a week. What she didn't know, what none of the pastel mafia upstairs seemed to realize, was that some of those old homeowners had been here longer than Brenda had been out of her starter home. You don't reassign them like overdue library books. You don't charm them with a LinkedIn bio and a quarterly newsletter. You build that kind of trust with funerals, hospital visits, and being the only voice on the phone at 2 a.m. when a storm knocks out power and everyone's basement is flooding. And now that voice was gone. By late afternoon, the tone started shifting. The questions weren't just, where's Emily anymore? They were under Clause 7C. What does a representative change do to my pending variance? Or am I correct in understanding that my enforcement notice is void unless signed by the original rep? One even attached a PDF, highlighted, annotated, clause circled in red. Lawyers don't do that unless they're preparing something. Brenda didn't get it right away, but Lisa from Records did. Or at least someone in Records stayed late Tuesday night, combing through the original binder with a yellow highlighter and a bad feeling. At 7:52 a.m. Wednesday, she sent a summary marked urgent to the whole board. As per Section 7C in the Legacy Continuity Clause, any change in the assigned community compliance representative shall render all enforcement actions and automatic fines void unless explicitly authorized in writing by said representative. The signatory on these covenants is Emily Hargrove. You could hear the collective gulp through the group chat. Brenda tried to spin in the emergency Zoom. It's outdated language. Homeowners don't care about fine print. Besides, we've got relationships. Momentum. They'll stay. Momentum. Jesus. Then at 10:42, the Jensens sent the email that copied in their attorney, the treasurer, and, deliciously, old Mr. Thorne in Florida. As our designated representative of record has been terminated, please consider this formal notice of intent to disregard all pending enforcement actions effective immediately. That email hit like a defibrillator. Lisa started calling legal counsel. Legal started calling the insurance company. Brenda's admin walked out mid-call and never came back because that's when it sank in. This wasn't theoretical. This was immediate. Without me, every single fine, every warning letter, every thread of lien was dry toast. All of it defaulted to manual renegotiation the moment they walked me out the door. And Brenda finally shut up. She sat in the clubhouse conference room, sweating through her pastel blouse, flipping through hard copies she didn't know how to read. No spin, no chest puffing, just the sound of paper and her own shallow breathing. Meanwhile, I was at the little cafe across the street, sipping iced tea and watching the clubhouse through the window. My phone buzzed once. Simple text from the Carlson family group chat. We've initiated the variance challenge paperwork. Let us know where to send it. I replied with a quiet will do. Didn't even smile. Didn't need to. Thursday morning, the reports finally caught up with reality. Over 60% of the active enforcement cases tied to my old files had either been withdrawn or gone radio silent. An HOA world that's not cooling off. That's the ice cracking under your feet right before you fall into the lake. The admin desk was swamped. Phones ringing. Email inboxes imploding. New volunteers whisper yelling across the room. Brenda had vanished into meetings with legal, then insurance, then both. And from what Denise texted me off the record, the original founding families were now involved, which meant the days of oat milk pep talks and color-coded violation charts were over. They called it a containment phase. I called it predictable, because this wasn't some rogue homeowner or a bad quarter. This was 74 covenant detonations happening at once, and every single one had my name etched at the base. I didn't answer any of Brenda's calls. First one at 10:04 a.m., then another at 10:26. Then the voicemail, just want to talk. Clear the air. Call me. Clear the air. What exactly did she think was fogging it up? The smoke from the dumpster fire she lit with her own damn lighter. By noon, the board secretary had worked up the courage to email. Full of that saccharine retroactive concern they always deploy too late. Emily, hope you're well. We're doing some internal review and wanted to reconnect. Perhaps we moved too quickly last week and would love to have a conversation about how we might move forward. They actually used the word perhaps, like maybe gutting my reputation was just a clerical hoopsie. I didn't respond. Instead, I walked 3 blocks to the little resident advocacy office that had been quietly courting me for years. Small team, great margins, homeowner first ethos, less flash, more substance, and most importantly, they knew what I was worth before a spreadsheet told them to. They handed me the sample agreement, spacious corner desk, privacy glass, 2 reserved spots in the parking lot, and an assistant I wouldn't have to train from scratch. I took the afternoon to walk the space alone, stood by the window, stared out at the clubhouse across the street, watched Brenda pacing near the entrance like a caged animal. Phone pressed her ear, probably trying to explain to someone why the words representative of record had suddenly become a legal guillotine. There was a grim kind of poetry to it. The same woman who called me legacy weight, now watching the legacy actually collapse in real time. The building looked smaller from here, less impressive, more fragile, and I realized something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not anger, not even satisfaction, relief. They were finally feeling the cost of forgetting what people like me actually did. We weren't paper pushers. We were the ink. And when you lose the person who carries the trust, you lose everything they held together. Brenda just didn't learn that soon enough, but she was learning now. Friday, 8:07 a.m. A black sedan pulled up in front of the clubhouse. Engine still running. No fanfare. No internal memo. Just the arrival of a storm, wearing a three-piece suit and orthopedic loafers polished to a mirror shine. Robert Thorne, founding president, 71 years old, silver hair like battlefield smoke, and a stare that could freeze blood mid-flow. He hadn't been inside since the last merger closed. No one told him what was happening. He found out the way men like him always do, through money, or more precisely, the vanishing of it. He walked past reception without a word. Denise tried to smile. He didn't even look up, took the elevator straight to the boardroom, and asked the first question loud enough for everyone to hear. What the hell is happening to our covenants? Not how are you? Not what's the status? Just that. Brenda was already there, sweating through a pale pink blouse that looked more wrinkled by the minute. She tried to stand, extend a hand, start with a smile. Robert didn't take it. We're managing it, she said, voice just a touch too high. It's been a challenging week, but we're putting in corrective measures. Robert cut her off with a look sharp enough to strip paint. Who is Emily Hardrove? Silence. Then Lisa slid the large black binder across the table. Spine labeled in gold. Original CC and RS 2010 to 2018. Robert flipped it open like he already knew what was inside. Pages rustled. Tension thickened. The only sound was the quiet scrape of paper and the occasional click of his pen. Clause 7C right there in bold. Any change of the assigned representative shall render all enforcement actions void unless authorized in writing by said representative. Each covenant listed a name. My name. Over and over. Wet signatures. Dates. Homeowner initials. Robert read it, closed the binder slowly, and then looked at Brenda like he was trying to decide whether to fire her or bury her under the azaleas. You removed the representative of record on our foundational covenants, he said. Voice a whisper now, deadly quiet, like the moment before a bomb goes off. Brenda opened her mouth, then shut it again. Robert leaned back, exhaled once through his nose, and stared at the ceiling like he was trying to remember the exact moment everything went wrong. You have any idea what happens when 74 covenant enforcements get bounced into renegotiation? No retention lock. No legal hooks. Just freedom. He looked at Lisa. Has she signed any release? Lisa shook her head. No, sir. No authorization on file. And homeowners, 68% of active cases attached to those covenants have either begun formal challenges or gone dark. Robert didn't move, didn't blink. Jesus Christ, he said, and let his head fall into his hand. Nobody dared speak. Somewhere in the corner the treasurer was pretending to take notes like the tremble in her pen wouldn't give her away. Robert finally looked up. Where is she? Brenda cleared her throat. We've reached out, left messages. Robert nodded slowly, then stood. Stop calling, he said. If she wants to talk, she'll let you know. If not, then may God have mercy on your violation logs. Then he walked out, leaving behind the silence of the damned. Across the street, I was finishing my third walkthrough and getting fitted for a new nameplate. I'd already picked the font. They didn't send Brenda. That would have been too insulting and too stupid even for them. They sent Miriam, the vice president, been there nearly as long as me. She'd once cried in my office after botching the pool committee budget. I stayed late to help her rebuild the spreadsheet slide by slide. She brought 2 people with her this time, one from legal, one from PR. All 3 looked like they hadn't slept in days. They asked to meet off-site, so we sat at the Neutral Cafe 2 blocks away, the kind with reclaimed wood and pour-over coffee and no music, just the sound of clinking mugs and tension. Emily, Miriam started, voice soft like we were at a funeral. We know the last week's been difficult, and we realize some things weren't handled with the care they should have been. I sipped my tea. Some things, she forced a smile. We're asking if you'd consider returning. Not permanently, just as a consultant. Help us stabilize the covenants. Interface with the homeowners. There's flexibility. We can structure it however you like. Compensation will be significant. I looked at her. Really looked. The bags under her eyes. The twitch in her left hand. The red indentation where her power ring used to be. She was unraveling at the seams, holding it together with spreadsheets and shame. The legal guy jumped in. We can fast-track onboarding. You could be in meetings as soon as Monday. We'll coordinate messaging carefully. Then the PR rep, who looked about 12, added, It's a win-win. Homeowners trust you. We respect that now. Respect now. I lean back, cross my arms. You didn't think I was worth a conversation before Brenda cut me loose, I said, calm but firm. No one checked my file. No one reviewed the covenants. You let a woman who doesn't know the difference between a variance and a violation strip mine 24 years of relationships because you thought loyalty was a sunk cost. Emily, Miriam said, reaching across the table. You built this community. We know that now. I shook my head. No, I built the trust. You built the rules. Then you torched them. They sat in silence for a beat. I could feel them waiting, still hoping I'd play the role of loyal old dog, eager to come back to the burning barn and fetch a stick. I've already signed with someone else, I said flatly. My own resident advocacy group. Full control. We're onboarding now. Miriam flinched. The legal guy blinked like I'd slapped him. I pulled my phone from my pocket and laid it face up on the table. Notifications lined the screen. Incoming withdrawal from HOA dues. Jensen family. $1,200. Incoming legal challenge. Carlson variance case. For $1,500 in fees redirected. Incoming petition. Halverson family. 47 signatures demanding my reinstatement or full covenant suspension. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. But I didn't apologize either. They stared at the screen like it was a crime scene photo. Reality laid bare in numbers and homeowner notifications. Emily, Miriam tried one last time. If there's anything, I cut in. Don't call the homeowners again. Don't spin a narrative. Just accept what you lost and pray they don't start a class action chat group. Then I stood, slid my phone back in my pocket, and left them at that table. Mugs cooling, hopes leaking out like steam. I didn't look back. Not out of cruelty, just clarity. Some things you can't fix once they break. And I was never theirs to begin with. They were just renting the trust one built until they forgot to pay the cost. The final board meeting wasn't scheduled. It was summoned. No coffee, no catered muffins, just panic and pastels and the sound of $30,000 in annual dues evaporating between every inhale. The tone was set before anyone spoke. No small talk. No how was your weekend? Just cold silence and the occasional buzz of someone's phone lighting up with another withdrawal notice. Robert sat at the head of the table, flanked by two outside attorneys and a grim-faced woman from the insurance carrier. He didn't speak for a full 2 minutes after the last exec took their seat. Just stared at the black binder in front of him with the kind of stillness that made everyone else sweat. Then he tapped a single page and looked at the general counsel. Read it, he said. The lawyer swallowed once and began. Pursuant to Clause 7C of the Continuity and Representative Authority Covenant, enforcement actions shall remain valid only under the continuous oversight of the assigned representative of record. Any change to said representative requires written authorization from the original signatory or shall result in the automatic termination of all related powers subject to renegotiation. The room was silent. No one dared cough. Robert looked around the table slowly, like he was counting who still had a chair to sit in. Emily Hargrove, he said, is the named representative on how many covenants? 74, Lisa replied. And how many of those have begun formal challenges? 68. 3 more are in review. The remaining homeowners are unresponsive. He leaned back, rubbed his eyes with thumb and forefinger. So we lost them the moment we let her go. No one disagreed. Brenda, by then, was in administrative purgatory. Her key card deactivated. Her pastel nameplate already boxed up. The rest of them just sat there, frozen in the realization that it hadn't been some strategic misstep or market trend that gutted the HOA. It had been one signature, or rather the absence of it. Robert finally spoke again, voice quieter than before. I want a list of every covenant with rep of record clauses by end of day. And I want an external audit of our removal protocols. No more assumptions. No more shortcuts. Then he stood. Meeting over. No votes. No motions. Just reality. Across the street, I stepped into my new office. The glass doors had just gone up the day before. My name was etched beside the logo in minimalist brass. Hargrove Resident Advocacy. The paint was still curing in the hallway. Inside, the space was warm and quiet. Sunlight poured through the south-facing windows, catching on the framed photos lining the credenza. Neighbors, families, memories, no buzzwords, no slogans, just people who trusted me enough to walk away from the HOA they'd been paying for decades. One of them sat across the desk now. Mrs. Halverson. She smiled as she slid a folder across. All filled out, she said. The girls were so relieved when I told them we'd be working with you again. I nodded, opened the folder, and clicked my pen. Didn't gloat. Didn't mention the chaos still unraveling across the street. Didn't need to, because that's the difference between titles and trust. They'd owned the first. I'd earned the second. I looked up at her, smiled gently, and said, "Shall we?" And just like that, the neighborhood that Brenda tried to rule with fear and fake smiles finally remembered who actually kept it standing all along.